Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live, interactive telephone town hall with Pennsylvania Labor and Industry Secretary Jerry Oleksiak and UC Benefits Policy Director Susan Dickinson. My name is Dirk, and I'll be the moderator today. The goal of this call is to provide you with helpful information as well as answer your questions and give updates on Pennsylvania's unemployment benefits programs during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as I mentioned, this is an interactive forum, and we would love to hear from you. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, and you'll be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They'll take down your name and where you're calling from. Then the next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call and able to ask your question directly. If you are streaming the event on our website, you could submit a question by typing your name and question below the streaming player. Again, if you joined us on the phone to ask a question, all you need to do is press *3 on your telephone keypad. And we do receive a lot of questions on our live events, so if we're not able to get to your question, please send us an email at uchelp@pa.gov. So let's get the call started now with opening remarks from Secretary Oleksiak. Secretary, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you to all of you who are joining us today for our 19th Town Hall. We appreciate you being a part of this, and we appreciate the opportunity to share the information that we have and, most importantly, to take your questions. Just some quick updates. Since March 15th, we have paid out more than $28.6 billion, with a B, in unemployment claims. And this includes our traditional unemployment plus all the Federal CARES Act programs that we have been administering, and the lost wages assistance program as well. As of between the weeks of March 15th and August 22nd, we have 97% of eligible claimants who filed for regular unemployment compensation have either been paid or have been determined to not be eligible. The remaining 3%, there are issues involving that need to be resolved, whether it's out-of-state witnesses, some identity issues, and we are doing all we can to get that backlog decreased. Part of what we've done, and we've mentioned this before, we have more than doubled our UC Center service center staff, going from 775 employees to over 1,600 employees. And those employees have worked a total of almost 324,000 total overtime hours and have responded to over 2.4 million phone calls, live chats, and virtual assistants. We have increased our capabilities, and we are now able to answer more than 6,300 calls and 9,000 emails daily, in addition to our live chat and virtual assistant. We hope to get that up to 7,000 and ultimately 8,000 phone calls. And we're hoping by the end of the year to be at 11,000 emails daily. So we are continuing to add people to our staff and making the technological improvements that we need to make. As we say every week, if you're on the wrong side of those statistics, that doesn't help you. We know that there are people whose benefits are delayed for various reasons, some of it related to PUA, and we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But please know that we are doing all we can to get people the benefits that they are entitled to. Related to PUA, I'm happy to announce that we've made some real progress toward getting claimants the payments they're waiting for from the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. As you know, this is the federal assistance program to help self-employed, independent contractors, gig workers, and others who are not traditionally eligible for regular UC. Many states across the country, including Pennsylvania, have experienced issues with fraudulent claims that have been filed. Identities have been stolen and information obtained through data breaches outside of our system and outside of government. We have, since that we became aware of this around Memorial Day, we have been implementing security measures to help identify and halt those fraudulent claims. I saw a significant reduction. Unfortunately, about 2 weeks ago, there was a sudden surge in suspicious PUA claims, which caused us to temporarily suspend payments for new claims. while we implemented still more layers of identity verification. And I'm happy to announce today that we have contracted with the security vendor to provide additional identity verification to PUC claimants. ID.me is a federally certified federally certified identity verification provider that specializes in digital identity protection. It's being used in other states, and we are able to implement that in Pennsylvania. And that will be coming soon, and Susan can give you more information about that. PUC claimants who are not receiving payments because they're awaiting identity verification, including those who applied after the surge in suspicious claims 2 weeks ago, will soon be receiving communication from ID.me asking them to take additional steps to verify their identities. When you receive this communication, there will be several steps you will need to follow, and Susan can talk about that. You'll also be able to verify that this request is legitimate before you provide that information. The fraud isn't going away. We continue to work with state and federal partners to identify who these people are. And it's important to us that we put a stop to this because it is getting in the way of your legitimate benefits. And we understand that this is a very important program to our fellow citizens. And that's why we have been working with federal and state law enforcement authorities, with our vendor, with the Department of Labor at the national level to make sure that we're able to get a handle on this. In the meantime, I would urge all of you to remain vigilant, to look for warning signs, to go to uc.pa.gov/fraud to learn what those signs are, how to report fraud, and any instructions that you need to return any fraudulent benefits that you may receive. And again, Susan will be talking a little more about that when she answers your questions. We are continuing to administer the Lost Wages Assistance Program. That's the Federal Emergency Management Agency program that provides an extra $300 a week, or did provide for the weeks August 1st through September 5th. We have thus far paid more than 5.3 million payments, totaling about $1.6 billion. We still have money left from the grant that we got from FEMA. We know there won't be any more money coming our way from FEMA, and we don't know what, if any, additional action the federal government will take at the congressional level. So we are urging all of you who may be eligible for the Lost Wages Assistance Program to file and do what you can to access those benefits. So with that being said, I believe Susan and I are ready to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Oleksiak. And a reminder, if you have a question you would like to ask, please press *3 on your telephone keypad to get into our question queue. Or if you're listening across the website to this call, please enter your name and your question below the streaming player. So let's go to Rosemary now. Rosemary, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, yes. I had applied back in March 12th or 13th, and I didn't start receiving my benefits until the middle of April, and I was never paid back pay for the March error for the $600 a week and the lump sum. I wanted to know how I go about getting that.
Hi, Rosemary. So depending on, it's definitely possible. Depending on which program you're on, we do have instructions on our website. It's just on different pages. If you're on PUA, then it's on the PUA page. If you're on regular UC, there's in our frequently asked questions section, there's a portion there for filing claims in frequently asked questions. How do I file for benefits? And there's some instructions. So pretty much all the instructions are, we'll start with the simple one. You could always just call and request the backdating. Of course, getting through on the phone is difficult these days. We realize that. So you can also do it by emailing us at uchelp@pa.gov to request the backdating. And this is what we have in our frequently asked questions. We have 3 bullet points in order to send in your backdating request, and have it not expedited, but have it so that we don't have to go back and forth with you too much. Make sure it's called backdate request. Provide the exact date that you're looking for to go back to, and any relevant information about that time period, like why you're requesting backdating, why you weren't able to get through. And you just have to send one email to that effect. You don't have to send multiples, because we will get to it. So once you have that email in, depending on the complexity, part of why we need, a request and the reasoning is because our Pennsylvania unemployment regulations actually state that there's certain reasons we can backdate and certain reasons we can't. So as long as you put in your reasons and we don't need anything else, it really shouldn't take very long. If you are denied for some reason, then you would be able to appeal that and provide additional information to a referee. But in any case, if it is an allowable reason, it'll be a fairly quick thing, and they'll be able to make those payments to you as soon as possible. You'd also mentioned FPUC. Just remember, FPUC, the $600 didn't start until April 4th. So you wouldn't receive those for March. You might receive them for weeks in April, depending on which weeks you haven't gotten paid. But you won't receive it for any weeks in March, because the CARES Act wasn't signed until the end of March. So it was only for weeks moving forward. So I hope that helps. And like I said, any way you get in touch with us is fine. An email might just be best for you, because then you're not waiting on the phone and trying to dial over and over. It's just a one-time thing, and then you can go about your day.
Joining us now, we've got Timothy on the line. Welcome to the call, Timothy. Go ahead with your question.
Yes. I reopened an initial claim at the beginning of July, after having opened an initial claim at the beginning of April, received benefits in April, went back to work for 2 months in May and June, and stopped filing benefits. At the beginning of July, reopened that initial claim. But when I went to file do my first biweekly claim on my reopened claim, all I could see in my status was my initial claim. The weeks that were offered to me were the weeks where I left off when I went back to work, so I didn't see any evidence that my reopened claim had been processed. And therefore, I have not been able to file for the weeks of July, August, and September that I have been unemployed. And I wondered, did I do something wrong? Is there an issue with my claim? Any clarification there on what happened or why I wasn't able to see my reopened claim? I know they're processed manually, so it takes longer. But any help there, I would appreciate. I have tried the service center. I got through one time, but that was when the system was down, so the person could not help me, and I've not got a response to my email, so I appreciate you taking my call today.
Hi, Timothy. For reopens, you are right. We do have a manual process in the background that has to happen to reopen those. However, we have been caught up with those for a while now. In the beginning of the pandemic and even through July, it was taking a while to get to those. Currently, the reopens are all caught up, though. So I'm wondering if maybe it was opened, but then the weeks, not to get too into the weeds, but, every Saturday our program runs that decides on claims whether weeks are offerable, so they're able to be open for you to claim them, versus if something's not timely and someone didn't file on time and then it closes the week, so you can't. I wonder if maybe it was just a timing issue. By the time staff reopened your claim, perhaps it then the system automatically shut it down before you could get to it. That's quite possible. So in order to get those back weeks, if it's not able for you to claim right now, then I think you said you did have an email in, which is good. As soon as someone reads that email, and we are getting through emails a lot faster now too. So as soon as someone reads that email, they'll be able to make the weeks offerable. So that's a good bet if you've already done that. Plus, we actually haven't mentioned it on the town hall in a couple months because it stopped coming up so often. But there were issues with individuals filing on the internet for a very long time there, whereas the internet wouldn't offer them weeks to file, but if you tried using the PAT system did give you weeks to file. It was very strange. I don't know why that would be. You would think it would all be one or the other. So that's another thought is if you haven't tried using PAT instead of the internet, you might want to just try using PAT and seeing if PAT will let you file. Just a thought, throwing that out there. But if anything, if you have sent an email, then we will be able to get to that, make the weeks offerable. Someone then, replies to the email and explains that they've made your weeks offerable and that you can go ahead and file. They may have questions, probably not, though they might just make it offerable and let you know that it's able to file. So everything regarding reopens is caught up, so I think that probably it might have just been a timing issue that threw it off.
Thank you very much, Susan. Now let's go ahead and segue to a few online questions. And we'll start with one from Chantel, who asks, what happens if you need to extend your unemployment due to lack of finding a family-sustaining wage?
Hi, Chantel. So depending on where you are in the process, there's multiple programs happening. I'll go through the series of programs first, but then I'll address what happens if you're at the end of it. So for individuals who are at the end of their regular unemployment claim, which is typically 26 weeks, it could be a little bit less than that, then those individuals will go to a PEUC claim. It's Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. It's part of the CARES Act that was signed at the end of March. And that gives you an additional 13 weeks at the same rate that you were getting before. And then you will have 13 weeks more of unemployment. After that, if you're finished with PEUC, then you'll roll straight on to extended benefits, which is another potential 13 weeks. It could be a little bit less depending on how long your regular unemployment claim was. You could get those 13 weeks of extended benefits and be able to claim the 13 weeks of extended benefits, through the end. That was not part of the CARES Act. Extended benefits is part of Pennsylvania law. So that will be available until the unemployment rate dips to a certain level. So, that could actually go on beyond the end of the year. So, but once you're done with those 13 weeks, the last resort program is PUA, which we talk, a lot about on this town hall, especially because it is a new system. It is a new program. There's a lot of different facets to it. There's a lot of fraud going on. But when it comes to PUA, individuals who have exhausted all other program types might have PUA eligibility. It's not a guarantee, but depending on the situation you're in, so here's what you need to look for. PUA is payable for up to 39 total weeks of benefits. Now, the 39 weeks, you have to subtract any weeks of regular unemployment or extended benefits that you've received since the beginning of February. And why is that? That's just the way that the CARES Act created the program. It created it kind of like a disaster program, and the disaster period began at the beginning of February. So the way that it works is that any payments you got from other programs, that reduces what you're entitled to on PUA. So if you were, the way that you count the weeks is payments. So if you haven't worked at all and you claimed weeks in full, that's a pretty easy calculation. If it was, 26 weeks of UC, 13 weeks of EB, whatever it might be. But you also do count weeks if you got paid anything. So a lot of people, were working part-time. They may have only received a reduced payment. They have to count those weeks as well, even though it wasn't a full payment. So you would count 39 weeks of PUA minus whatever weeks of unemployment you may have received February or later of this year, minus any weeks of extended benefits that you received. PEUC weeks are excluded from this, so you don't have to count those. And then if you have any remaining entitlement, you would have to ask yourself, A, am I unemployed due to one of the COVID-19 reasons that is specified for PUA? And if you look at our PUA page on our website, it does talk about the program. It has links to the CARES Act and other things that will help you understand, entitlement to the program. Also, you have to ask, were you attached to the workforce? So, someone who, for example, hasn't worked in 2 years, they're not attached to the workforce. At the time that the disaster started, were you working somewhere, or did you have a definite job offer? You were about to start somewhere. You need to show some sort of attachment to the workforce during this disaster period that you would have had, if not for COVID-19. So there's a couple different questions there. Like if your unemployment is not due to COVID-19, let's just say you were laid off or you were fired or quit or something, and you just simply can't find a job because it's difficult out there. That's not a specific COVID-related reason that the CARES Act allows for PUA. So there's a couple different things there to think about, and we are actually putting this information, because I'm sure all of you are thinking, wow, that's a lot of information. That is a lot of information, and we are putting it on our website so that individuals will be able to hopefully understand, once they've exhausted all the other programs, what is it they have to consider to decide whether or not they should file an application for PUA. We did have some outstanding questions with the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, and they actually just got back to us right before this town hall started, so that was good. Now that we have our information, we're going to be able to update our public website soon so that individuals have that information as well. So it's just if depending on which stage you are in the process, there may be another program available for you, but of course it depends on your particular eligibility for your situation.
All right, our next question is another online question submitted by Matthew, who asks, how can I change the last day worked on my PUA claim? I just found out I may have accidentally put the wrong date in.
Hi, Matthew. The only way to do that would be to get in touch with us either through calling the phone line for PUA or emailing ucpua@pa.gov, and you can just give us what the last date was, explain the error. And it shouldn't be that much of a big deal for us to change it. Depending on the staff that you get. We do have new people starting all the time, but we train them as well as we can. But there's nothing like learning when you're doing. So, just get in touch with PUA staff member either way. And also, this would be a good time to remind everyone that you can get PUA assistance now through live chat. For the longest time, live chat was only for UC, PEUC, EB, those programs. But PUA assistance is now available through our live chat feature as well. Live chat's available from Mondays through Fridays from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So you can also, if you prefer trying the live chat, you could go that route as well.
All right, as a reminder to everyone listening in on this call, if you're on the phone with us, please press *3 if you have a question. Again, if you're listening on the phone, please press *3. You'll be connected to our question queue and able to ask your question live on the call. If you are listening on the web, all you need to do is put your name and question beneath the streaming player. So moving back to the phones now, we've got Mike joining us on the line. Welcome to the call, Mike. Go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me there. The other day, I received a letter stating that I recently filed and was eligible for unemployment. Well, I've never been unemployed. I never filed. It's obviously fraud. Every time I try to contact anything in your system, I get nowhere. I got the fraud department hotline, and they said it could be months till they get back to me. I tried the attorney general. It's basically saying could be weeks before they get back to me. So what do? I mean, I hate to see somebody, obviously I got identity theft on this, and I hate to see the fraud continue and somebody get money that they don't deserve when there's other people out there that deserve the money.
Hi, Mike. Yes, you are correct that is definitely an identity theft issue. So we do have a page on our website for that explains everything going on with fraud. There is a link there to report the fraud. So, and actually, in just a coincidence. This morning, someone told me that the link wasn't working. So we are looking to fix it right now. Normally, every day but today, there is a link there to report fraud. So as soon as we get that fixed up, it'll be ready to go. But anyway, it sounds like the fraudster did steal your identity. The stolen identities are from other sources, and there isn't a lot of information that we know yet, from law enforcement as to like where it could have happened or when. But in any case, they've used your information to file a claim. So as long as you report that to us, what we're doing is we're first and foremost making sure that we stop those claims to make sure that no benefits go out. It's happening mostly on our PUA program, but it's also happening on our regular programs as well. So, as long as you send us that information, that's all we need at least to stop that portion of it. Now, on your side of it, you will want to file a police report for your stolen identity. And then you had said that you had called a fraud hotline. I'm wondering if that's our labor and industry one specifically, or if that was related like OIG. Our labor and industry group, of course, is very busy because of all the fraud happening. So if you did speak with them and they said, it could take months, what they may have meant was that to fully process it, like they're going through and making sure the claims stop. But then they usually get back to people and give you a whole packet of information from the federal government about what to do if your identity is stolen. And they also do request from you, once you file your police report, a copy of that police report so that they can then use that as the evidence they need to disassociate the claim with your Social Security number so that, you don't get a 1099 saying you received this money at the end of the year, so that none of it's related to you, since it had nothing to do with you other than the person chose to steal your identity. So it's as long as you, have sent us the original information either through an email or through the fraud link, then that gets the ball rolling. And, you know what? Someone just sent me a message saying that the fraud link has been fixed. So it's already fixed. If you haven't used it, you can go in there and report the fraud there. That does go to our group. Again, our website is www.uc.pa.gov/fraud. That will take you directly to the page, and then that will get you what you need. If you do receive any type of debit card in the mail, which is typical especially if it's a PUA fraud issue, then you can send that debit card to the treasurer. There is information on our fraud page that gives the address to send it to the treasurer. Or if you don't want to actually physically mail it, you can take photographs of it. If you have a smartphone, take photographs of it and email it to the treasurer, and then you can just destroy the card. So I hope that helps. Definitely check out our page that has a lot of information, our fraud page, about what to do with these situations.
So our next question comes from Lynn, who's on the phone with us now. Lynn, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you for having these town calls. I am currently receiving regular UC benefits, and they are almost exhausted. I am interested in purchasing a small business from a friend, and I would not have any profit for at least a couple months. So if I go ahead and do that, what do I have to report to UC? Thank you.
Hi, Lynn. So typically there's two portions here. First, let's talk about wages, and then we'll talk about self-employment. Whenever it comes to anyone doing any type of work, of course, as soon as you start doing activity that earns wages, even if you're not paid money, you kind of have to put a price tag on the work that you do and how much that would be worth. Anytime someone earns wages, they would report that to us, and then we deduct the earnings. And that's specifically why we call them earnings. It's not so much you're paid yet, but it's the work that you did, and then we deduct for the work you did that week. However, since you are going into self-employment, it's likely you won't be eligible anyway, because individuals who are self-employed are not eligible for traditional unemployment benefits. Even if you already, as you mentioned, you already have a claim, that's based on your base year work, but that's just a financial calculation. In addition to being financially eligible, you also have to meet other tests in order to be eligible for unemployment. So since, starting with the week that you have started self-employment, you don't necessarily have to report the self-employment to us to shut down the claim, but you should just stop filing for weeks that week because as long as you're self-employed, you wouldn't be eligible for traditional unemployment. Now, if you did then at some point this year before the PUA program ends, PUA program is traditionally known, or I shouldn't say traditionally, but it's well known to be for self-employed individuals. If something were to happen between now and the end of December and you were to be unemployed again, you still wouldn't be eligible for regular unemployment if you're considered self-employed, but you might be eligible for PUA. So instead of reopening your regular UC claim, if you became unemployed for one of the reasons in the CARES Act related to COVID-19, you could open a PUA claim at that point until the end of the program, which currently is still the end of December. So just remember at whatever point you do, not just purchase the business, but actually start doing the self-employment, that week you'll want to be the first week where you don't claim unemployment benefits.
All right, our next caller is Lennon, who's on the line with us now. Welcome to the call, Lennon. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hey, thank you so much for taking my call. My question is, I had left my job to pursue a remote job because I was working in Montgomery County at the time of the virus, and it seemed like it was getting pretty scary. It turns out that I actually did an actual interview with this company, and I've come to find out that the company was actually a scam company to get my information. And now I am jobless. I was wondering if I qualify for benefits.
Hi, Lennon. It is quite possible that you would qualify for benefits because, of course, what we do is we look at the individual circumstances of every case, and we look to see, where the fault lies, I guess you could say. Like, was it the employer's fault? Was it the person's fault? Like, who was the last person whose action caused the unemployment, and then that, the other party is generally the one that would be granted benefits, or, if it's the employer, then the person would be denied benefits. So in your case, the examiner would speak with you and get your story. And I mean, it's definitely, if they feel, that's a bona fide, you can give them any evidence that you might have, a bona fide issue, and another, any other reasonable person would have fallen in that same trap. And it's not really your fault that you quit your job, but you were given this other job and then the job didn't materialize. I mean, that's not really your fault. So, it depends. Make sure that you give all of the relevant information and any type of evidence to the examiner that deals with your case. But if it is what you say it is, you will probably be eligible for benefits only because it wasn't you didn't mean to sever your employment relationship for no good reason. You had another job offer, at least so you thought.
Moving on now to an online question. And Curtis asks or states, I'm self-employed. I started doing side gigs in September. What should I do if I reported gross instead of net for PUA? If I change to net reporting for the past week filing, will this cause an error? My determination was based on my Schedule C.
So it's definitely a good idea to correct the earnings. And if you correct them to net with us, then it's likely that your unemployment payment might actually be higher for those weeks. We might owe you a supplement. So it depending on how you want to get a hold of someone, you can use the phone, you can use email, you can use chat. Email might be the best just because then you just type one email and you don't have to continue to try calling us or anything like that. Moving forward, for weeks moving forward, you can report the net, and that should not be an issue. And, the only time when issues pop up is if the system detects that someone was employed like full-time for a week or most of the time for a week, and then the next week they're fully unemployed. That's the time when the system goes, hey, what's going on here? But in any case, the net earnings going forward, that would be good just to make sure that you're getting the proper amount. You would just have to document in an email, or, if you want to call the PUA Service Center, you can do that as well. And explain for each week, I reported this, but instead it should have been my net earnings, which is this. And then the person can go through, correct it, and then they'll be able to make supplemental payments to you.
Our next question is an online question submitted by Kane. And Kane wonders, what is the area code the UC staff will call from?
Well, that is a good question because it is an 888 number. So I don't know that there's necessarily, I know that there are some local numbers that are sometimes used. Our examiners, when they call you, they will usually leave a specific phone number for you to call them back, or an extension for them to call you back. But in any case, it is an 888 number. The 888 is like the kind of like in the area code spot, and then 313 is in the exchange spot. So if you, it is good if you just take our phone number and just save it in your phone as a contact, and that way when our number pops up, it's us. It's whatever you've named us in your phone, and it's not some spam caller or something like that. So our examiners or interviewers, they may actually be calling at various times because people are working overtime on weekends and in evenings, so they may call at weird times, which makes it a little harder to do our work outside of regular hours, only because individuals really don't answer their phones. They're not sure that that's a real call. They don't want to, or if they do answer, they don't think it's us because it's 8 p.m. But of course, we have to do what we have to do these days because there is just so much work happening. So they do work at a lot of different strange hours and on Sundays and stuff. So in any case, just look for the 888-313-7284 is our phone number, and that's what you should be seeing when we call you.
All right, another online question. Rick says he's exhausting his EB in 2 weeks, but he still has 1 quarter towards his next UC claim, but not enough to claim regular UC again. Can he claim PUA benefits?
Possibly, and we did talk about that a little earlier, so I won't go over the whole thing again. But it is possible if you're finishing EB. The PUA benefits would be 39 weeks minus however many weeks you've been paid so far in the pandemic disaster period, the federal disaster period, which begins at the beginning of February. Subtract 39 minus any of those weeks of regular UC and EB that you have been paid so far. And then that would be what you are potentially entitled to receive for the rest of the PUA program. Now, remember, the PUA program ends at the end of December. So even though you may be entitled to, let's say you do the math, let's say we do have some individuals who have only received extended benefits because let's say their regular UC benefits exhausted before the pandemic began, and they were able to go straight to PEUC and then straight to EB. They might actually have a full 26 weeks of PUA benefits that are available to them. However, it's not going to last for 26 weeks because the program ends in about 3 months. So number of weeks of entitlement is going to vary based on the person, based on how many weeks you've been paid of the other programs. But you also do have to be related to the workforce. You have to be in even though if you're not working, you have to be attached to the workforce. So, retirees, for example, who've been retired for a couple of years, they would not be eligible for PUA. If someone hasn't been looking for work for the last year and a half, you wouldn't be eligible for PUA. So it has to be someone who was attached to the labor force at the time that the disaster period started. And also, you have to be unemployed for a direct COVID-related reason. One of the CARES Act reasons, and they do give 11 reasons in the CARES Act as to how someone could be eligible for PUA. So if you don't meet one of those, for example, if you simply just can't find work right now, that wouldn't be a PUA eligible reason. So you just kind of have to ask yourself those questions. And I did mention earlier we will be updating our website with more information about this very soon. We were waiting on some responses, which we have now received from the federal government. So we will put the information out there, and then people can make informed choices about whether or not they should apply for PUA or not.
All right, another online question. This one came to us from Kathy, who asks, what is the status of reviewing previously approved claims with a 424 issue? My payments have been pending since mid-July. I have uploaded the requested information, emailed, and called with no resolution.
So this is a good question. This is actually slightly different than when we're usually talking about the 261 identity issue. A 424 issue is actually a mismatch of the information that you provided with Social Security Administration's records. So, for example, if you gave us a maiden name and it should have been a married name, or vice versa, or a lot of people might reverse two numbers in their Social Security number by accident. You just you mistype it or whatever. So depending on whatever reason, the data that you input did not match the federal Social Security records that they have for you. And so they sent back to Pennsylvania and said, no, this person's not a match. So then what we have to do is check your information, which it sounds like you've already sent. And unlike, with the other identity issues that we go through, we're just checking to make sure that you are who you say you are and then making payments. When it comes to a 424 error, which is the Social Security error, it also means that we have to correct something. So if it exists because you had put in the wrong Social Security number, for example, we would have to correct it as well before you can proceed. So whatever data is the bad data in your claim, we do have to fix it, and then we can move forward with it. So everything, regarding whether it is a 261 identity issue or a 424 identity issue, everything has been a little slow right now only because it's a large volume and we're doing everything manually. So now that, as the Secretary mentioned, we're getting the ID Me software. We have some internal software we're already starting to deploy, and then externally we'll be sending any of those individuals that we need to have verified to ID Me. That's actually going to free up the staff to do things such as handle the 424s much more quickly, because now they don't have to spend time doing those other identity verification tasks, and we can redeploy them to doing tasks that are providing much more value to you as a customer. And so we're greatly looking forward to that. So if there's a chance someone may be getting to it soon if you send it a long time ago. But if not, we should really be getting to it soon, only because we will have that automation helping us, and then we can get to the 424s and fix everything in a much faster manner.
All right, we're heading back to live callers now, but as a reminder, if you have a question you would like to ask live on this call, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. Again, if you're listening to this call on your telephone and you have a question you'd like to ask live, please press *3. We've got Donna joining us now. Welcome to the call, Donna. Go ahead with your question, please.
Hi, I actually have a two-part question. I currently collect PUA. I lost work I'm a 1099. I lost work in March due to COVID, the business closing that I do work for. And now I currently completely lost the job because of production due to COVID. Am I able to still claim, and do I just continue to select the reason of the business being closed even though it's not closed? I just completely lost my position. And the second part of my question is PUA says the maximum weeks is 39, but according to the federal guidelines, I've read that it can be extended an additional 7 weeks if the state is in high unemployment period. Is there a possibility of PUA getting EB we always hear about UC getting the extended benefits. But is it possible for PUA?
Hi, Donna. Those are a bunch of good questions. So first, I'll start with the original situation, your employment situation changing. So the sole thing to look at with PUA is if you're still unemployed for one of those reasons in the CARES Act. So, and it sounds like you have multiple sources of unemployment. So typically, without getting too much into the weeds, when someone's filing like a regular unemployment claim, but they also report some self-employment, and they do both, what we do is we look to see where they made more money, because then that's considered their primary source. If someone makes more money doing self-employment, then they wouldn't be eligible for regular employment because we consider them self-employed. If they made more money at traditional employment but had some self-employment as well, then we may consider them traditionally employed, but they have a sideline business. Hopefully that wasn't too convoluted. So when it comes to PUA benefits, that is specifically, for individuals who were more self-employed than regular unemployed. So if now you're saying that your regular job is completely gone, your status will only change based on those 11 CARES Act reasons. So if you no longer meet, and some people may meet more than one CARES Act reason, I just want to make that clear. Maybe 3 of those reasons apply to you, but you only have to choose the best one. So if you don't meet one of those 11 CARES Act reasons, then you would not be eligible to continue on PUA. If you do have at least one of those CARES Act reasons, then you can be eligible for PUA. It might even change time to time or even week to week, depending on your situation. There's one in there about childcare. There's one in there about having COVID-19 yourself and having to quarantine. So, those things, if any of those come into play and that's the reason that you're unemployed, then you're welcome to continue on PUA at that point. So to the second question about extended benefits, the extended benefit program is not in addition to the PUA program. It's actually in addition to the regular unemployment program. So right now, if someone can qualify for regular extended benefits, then they would have to file on an extended benefit claim before they could file on a PUA claim. So there's an order of operations when it comes to all the different programs we have. And the federal government lays it out for us in the states. And they say, okay, this is the order in which you have to pay people. If they can qualify for regular UC, you have to pay them regular UC first. If they can qualify for PEUC, that comes next. EB, that comes next. And then finally, PUA is at the end. You had mentioned you had checked in our law and you could see where there is an additional potential 7 weeks. That actually refers to high unemployment period extended benefits. And again, I try not to get too much into the weeds, but when you're talking unemployment law, it's not a fun, easy topic a lot of times. So the unemployment law allows for the extended benefits program, which, as I mentioned, is about 13 weeks and comes in during periods of high unemployment. So the additional 7 weeks, that comes into play when our law specifies it. It's in there from actually the Great Recession 10 years ago. And legislation is needed to get those additional 7 weeks. So there was temporary legislation put in 10 years ago to allow for those additional 7 weeks. There was also some federal funding tied to it at the time, as I recall. So our state legislature put in that additional 7 weeks, the ability for us to get the 7 weeks, I should say, because all the states have something like that. So we were able to take advantage of those 7 weeks at the time. And then there was a time when that law had sunset. So you'll still see it appear there, but it's not currently active. It would take some legislation to get it active right now, and we would be able to pay the additional 7 weeks if we're in the high unemployment period, which I'm pretty sure right now we are. And if that became the case, it would be an additional 7 weeks for anyone who's on extended benefits. So in addition to their regular 13 weeks of extended benefits, they'd get the additional 7 for people who have a low amount of extended benefits you can have anywhere from 9 to 13 weeks. It would be a slightly lesser amount, anywhere from 4 to 7 weeks. And if anyone had moved on to the PUA program, and this is where it gets tricky and weird when it comes to all these federal programs and the CARES Act programs, if someone had moved on to the PUA program and we get some sort of extension like that where there's an additional weeks of EB or there's additional weeks of PEUC, we actually have to stop people from collecting on PUA, move them back to the other program, and have them collect all those weeks out. And then if PUA is still available after that, move them back to PUA. It gets very messy. We've had to do that before in the Great Recession. And now, right now, nothing like that happens. But if it were to happen, that is pretty much what we would have to do. And we would have to follow DOL's rules about moving people back and forth. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to throw that out there in case anyone was wondering how that would work.
All right, our next caller is Nicholas. Nicholas, welcome to the call. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you. So I lost my job on June 19th, and I applied for UC benefits on June 28th. I received a notice of financial determination, which read, quote, during your base year, our records show that no wages were reported by any employer under the Social Security account number you furnished to us. If the Social Security account number on this determination is incorrect, it is important that you immediately contact the UC Service Center to correct this error. I tried to contact, I couldn't get through to anyone. The appeal date was July 17th, but I didn't actually get this letter until after the appeal date, so I could not appeal on time, but I appealed anyway. I also sent my W-2s, my pay stubs, my taxes, my separation letter. I mailed all of that stuff to the office. I emailed on August 24th. I haven't been able to get in touch with anyone through calling or chat, and I have not heard any response to my email. And I'm very concerned because I haven't actually made any money since I lost my job, and we're going on over 3 months, I guess, at this point. Over 3 months. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do, frankly.
It does sound like you've done everything you need to, and you've given us everything that we need. It is a little perplexing that it's taken this long, only because it is, when it comes to monetary eligibility, it's a very black and white type of thing. It's just a financial calculation. If we didn't have any of your wages on file, then all we would have to do is use the pay stubs and things that you had sent, and we'd be able to straighten it out. So you had mentioned that you had filed the appeal, and I will mention that if right now, if anyone's receiving any type of determination and the date, you're receiving it late, the date has already passed, you can ignore those dates. You should go ahead and file appeals anyway, just because our own administrative services, the ones who send out our mail, they're fairly caught up. I mean, there's really no problem in our mail room exactly, but with everything going on with the post office, things are getting slowed down a lot. So definitely don't let those dates on those forms hold you back. So in this case, a monetary appeal, those actually don't go to the traditional referees. If you think of the appeals system where we issue a determination from a service center, you appeal it, and then you go to a referee and have a hearing. When it comes to monetary appeals, those don't go straight to hearings. Those will go back to the service center just to get fixed. It's just a more expeditious way to get through them and not have to, tie up the referee time and make everyone come to a hearing when you really don't need to. So that should have, I'm not sure which office might be your office, but it should have made it to what we call the monetary unit in each office. And the monetary unit then, looks at the pay stubs, and it looks to, see what needs to be done. If your wages, when they were missing, if it looks like a wage investigation by our tax people are needed, then they might send it to our tax people, and wage investigations do take a little longer, which could be the case here. A lot of times, though, I mean, if you've worked, as a traditional employee for an employer, it could be that they just made an error on the wage reporting that they do every quarter. So your employer reports your wages to us every quarter, and we've certainly had people who have, they may have worked someplace for years, and all this time their employer's been reporting them under the Social Security number, and no one ever realized it because they've never had to file a claim. So that is actually another possibility. I don't know if you have, a good relationship with your last employer and you'd be able to check with them. But if you do, you can always check with them to make sure they have your right Social Security number and that they've been reporting it correctly. Employers are able to amend their reports. So if an employer has made a mistake reporting someone's wages to us, they can go into the UCMS system and amend their reports. And that would also straighten it out in order to be able to get your claim taken care of. But, it sounds like you have given us everything we need to move forward with it. It might just be a wage investigation that's happening. But, I would encourage you to try just getting a hold of us just to see, because 3 months does seem a long time. Wages are definitely something that usually goes faster than that. It's not like having a non-monetary issue where you have to get the story from all the different parties. I mean, it's really just a calculation, so it should be faster than that. I know it's hard to get a hold of us these days, especially on the phone, but chat and email are also other possibilities. And then, they'll be able to check and see what's going on with the claim. And they'll also be able to backdate if you haven't been filing your biweekly claims. And maybe you have been, which would be good. But if you haven't been, they'll also be able to backdate at that time and be able to get all those weeks ready for you so that when everything is straightened out, you can get paid right away.
Thank you very much, Susan. And looking at the time, it looks like we're going to try and sneak in one more caller question. It's about all the time we'll have for today as we begin to wrap up the call. But we've got Stefan joining us live right now. Stefan, go ahead with your question, please.
Yes, here's my question. It's a multi-part question. In 2019, I worked in Hawaii at Outback Steakhouse, and I wound up quitting my job to come to Pennsylvania as an independent contractor working for somebody. And during working for somebody, COVID happened, and basically they rescinded the job. What happened was I filed a PUA claim, and the PUA Pennsylvania accepted my claim, but then once found out all the information I put in that I had a job in Hawaii, which had a W-2, they terminated my claim, and they said I needed to go to Hawaii, do a PUA claim in Hawaii and a regular UC because I had a UC at the time. So I filed those over there. They denied my PUA claim in Hawaii, but the UC still says pending. And my question is, Hawaii is now waiting for Pennsylvania to go to them and say that I didn't have any wages in Pennsylvania for them to possibly pay me in Hawaii. And I'm wondering how I go about doing that, because nobody answers the phones or emails or anything like that. And the other thing is, why would Hawaii pay me if my claim should be in Pennsylvania, because the incident occurred in Pennsylvania? Those are my questions.
Sure, and I'll try to. It is complicated, but I'll try to make it kind of a brief summary. So, for starters, when states need wages among each other information, there's actually internal processes set up. So there's really nothing you have to do. You don't have to contact us. There's what's called an Interstate programs coordinator in every state, and they all work with each other. So Pennsylvania has one, Hawaii has one, and they would work together to make it happen. So they would be working together on this. Now, when it comes to claims eligibility, if you can qualify for a regular unemployment claim, doesn't matter which state it's in, if you can qualify for any regular unemployment claim, you have to take that over a PUA claim. PUA is just a program of last resort. So you don't qualify for anything else, then you get PUA. So as long as you can qualify for regular UC, you have to take that. And when it comes to qualifying for regular UC, you have to look at the base year So depending on when your claim was opened, in Pennsylvania, it's the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters. So I know that's a bit much, but what you do is when you look in that base year, which is a period of 12 months rolling, then you look to see which states have you have wages in, and then you get to choose which of those states you have wages in. So if your base year is all of 2019 and you don't have any Pennsylvania wages, then you have to file in Hawaii because you don't have any Pennsylvania wages, so you can't file a claim here. If you have some Pennsylvania wages in 2019 and that's your base year, and you have some Hawaii, then you get to choose where you want to file your unemployment claim. So it is a kind of a confusing topic, and sorry, it's the end of the end of the hour, so I can't really expand too much on it. But you can check on our website. We do have, it's called a combined wage claim. So if you look for combined wage claim, it will explain how the wages work and where you can file a claim.
Thank you, Susan. As I mentioned, we are coming to the end of this live event. We do appreciate the opportunity to speak directly with you and answer your questions. I'll turn it over now to Secretary Oleksiak for closing remarks.
Thank you, Dirk, and thank you to all of you who have joined. We appreciate your time. We hope you found this helpful. We're looking forward to the changes we'll be making to help get some of these pool of claims taken care of. So thanks for being with us.
So for the Pennsylvania Labor and Industry updates, you can always visit www.uc.pa.gov. And once again, if we were unable to address your questions today, please send an email to uchelp@pa.gov. And a heartfelt thank you to everyone for taking the time to participate in this call. We hope you stay healthy and safe and have a wonderful day.